But it's Robert Jackson's birthday, and he's the one who should be receiving all the presents, I guess, but he's really our gift. He's the gift to us. He is a gift to Warren County. He's a gift to the world, and we're really here to celebrate his major accomplishments. We have to admit that we did not know much about Robert Jackson when Greg Peterson called us a few years ago, and I mentioned this earlier, to say, "Have I got a story for you?" We were heading down I-79 on the way to do some interviews for our Harry Keller Magician documentary, and Greg called, and he had seen our Ida Tarbell documentary on public television. He said, "I've got this great story, you're going to love it." But we didn't know much about Robert Jackson. We'd heard of the Nuremberg trial, but that's about it. And here we are, ourselves from Western Pennsylvania. And so we just read all we could. We just jumped right in, and we decided, even though we weren't in a position to take on a new project right then and there, you cannot say no to Greg Peterson. I don't know how many of you know Greg personally, but I think you will agree, you cannot say no. He is so passionate about Robert Jackson and sharing his legacy and the story, and the Jackson Center itself and its 10 years of wonderful service to, again, not only our local community, but to making this story available to the world is very important, and we congratulate Greg and his board of directors for doing such a fantastic job. Like Greg, over the years we've come to appreciate the significance of Robert Jackson's achievements and why we have so much to learn from him. Jackson's speeches, his Supreme Court opinions, his work at the Nuremberg trial, and even the trajectory of his life story. The fact that he came from a small community in the middle of the forest, which we absolutely love this region ourselves, but when you think about it, it's a very small town. He didn't go to college, and that really, I think, speaks to young people today, that you can go on and do these great things. And it doesn't matter if you live in New York City or LA or Chicago, you can come from a place like this, surrounded by beauty, and go on to do some wonderful things. Producing a documentary like this is really like going on a treasure hunt, and really that's what it's like for me. And you just find some interesting stories in the most unusual places. We're still turning up new information about Robert Jackson. I was just talking tonight at the reception about some new people who can shed light on his story. And it's really amazing that the treasure hunt has taken us to some pretty wonderful places. It's taken us in the footsteps of Robert Jackson to Spring Creek Township. We went looking for his family homestead along Broken Straw Creek, and Rich will tell you at the time we were experimenting with a new large format HD camera. So we're lugging all this big equipment through the woods. But we were determined to find where he lived and to look at the horse farm that he loved so well and that he returned to. Years and years, he would keep coming back here. We wanted to know what it was about this region that he came to love. So part of that treasure hunt took us in his footsteps. And we also traveled to the Library of Congress, where there are 280 boxes of his personal papers and family photographs and letters and his opinions. And we only had, a week? We've been there twice, but it's nowhere near enough time to explore all this wonderful material that's there. That's where his personal papers are, but there's also an awful lot of material at the Robert Jackson Center, and we've spent time there. We shot exterior scenes at the Supreme Court. We got permission to shoot there, and I think there's a lot of, we had to go through a lot of hoops to do that because of all the national security issues and everything with terrorism. But they allowed us to come in and shoot some scenes there that you'll see in our opening segment tonight. We attended the International Humanitarian Law Dialogues that Greg alluded to a few minutes ago. And how many years has that been going on now? Is that 5 years? 5 years. And we had the rare opportunity to listen in on some of the conversations of these chief prosecutors of military and criminal tribunals all over the world, and to hear the challenges that they face in prosecuting the most evil crimes against humanity and genocide that you can imagine. And you heard David Crane, if some of you were here last year, you heard some of those stories. But to be able to go to Chautauqua Institution and sit on the porch, Rich, remember, we sat in the rocking chairs the evening before the presentations and heard them talk among themselves and talk about Robert Jackson and the international law, and they really look at what he established as the beginnings of international law. But to sit there and hear them talk, it was a very rare and wonderful experience to be able to listen in on that and then interview some of these people for our documentary. And for the bonus features, I don't want to call it, it doesn't sound right to say that, but on the DVD that we release, we will have some of these really special interviews about the experiences today to show the connection between the Nuremberg legacy and what's going on today. But these people were very tired and very weary, and still they persisted, using the rule of law that Robert Jackson established and the others at the Nuremberg trial, and later the subsequent actions of the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. And that will always stay with me. I guess when you start on a project like this and you go out on this treasure hunt, you never know what's going to come back, but it tends to stay with you. So if you have an opportunity at the end of August, to go to the International Humanitarian Law Dialogues, it's public, it's free, it's open to the public, and you can sit in the audience and hear these kinds of discussions at the end of the Chautauqua season, and it's so close to us. You really should go if you have a chance. We've really, in addition to that, we've combed private and public collections for hundreds and hundreds of photographs that are needed for visual material to tell this story. The Harry Truman Library, the Robert Jackson Center, and I hope Jen Champ is here. She is just such a huge help to us in the archives at the Jackson Center, because they have been the recipient of many collections. The Henry King collection is there now, and wonderful photographs from people like Ray DiDario. We also have permission to use images from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum and Library. And some of my favorite people are librarians and archivists, because they love when you give them a challenge and say, I'm looking to tell this story, and can you help me find a photo such and such from 1941? They just love that, and they will go and help you. And even on short notice, we've had wonderful response from people who are willing to help with this project, and many of them know of Robert Jackson, and so they're even more thrilled to help. We're fortunate to be able to build upon the work of U.S. Army photographer Ray DiDario, who documented Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trial, and Nuremberg, the city, after World War II. And maybe some of you have seen his work. Have you seen his work at the Robert Jackson Center? It's a beautiful exhibit of his photography there. Of the defendants, but also of the trial and of Nuremberg. And a lot of this is also on the Jackson Center website for you to see. But anyway, I had the chance to meet Ray DiDario when he was here, and also to talk with him by phone before he died not too long ago. And in preparation for this presentation tonight, I again used Google to say, I wanted to find a little bit more background about him, because I knew that he had died. Well, when I brought up his New York Times obituary, would you believe that Ray DiDario, who documented the Nuremberg trial, whose photos you're going to see in this sequence, died exactly 1 year ago today, on Robert Jackson's birthday? That, to me, is just very moving. And in talking with Ray DiDario by phone, he, like Jackson, said that this was the most meaningful work of his life. We're hoping will come as a result of this documentary, and maybe if we can engage young people in this whole idea, was Abraham Lincoln was leaving church one Wednesday evening, and he was asked what he thought about the minister's sermon. And the minister, he said, well, the minister had a strong voice and a good delivery, but he forgot the most important part. He forgot to ask us to do something great, to leave and go out into the world and really do something great. And I, again, look out over this audience, and today earlier with the young people at Warren High School, I think there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of possibility here for everyone to make a gift to the world as Robert Jackson did. Thank you.